Welcome back to the Manufacturing Come Up. I'm Malachi Grubb, CEO and engineer of Elite Automation, host of the Manufacturing Come Up. And today we have a special guest, one that's going to help you navigate your career and has a ton of valuable content. We actually had to stop our off-camera conversation just because there's too much value being dropped and we weren't grabbing it. So here today we have Michael Sullivan, aka Sully.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you here. Like we was talking about before, I think you're in a very unique position to be on this podcast because, being in the recruitment space, you're seeing both sides of, what the employer is looking for and then what the employee needs to be prepared for. I think there's a ton of value you're going to be able to add in this podcast around that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. First, before we get started, I guess let's go ahead and kind of get to where you're currently at in your career.
Sure.
And then take us back to how this all transpired.
Yeah, no, good question. So currently I'm a senior executive recruiter for Miller Resource Group. So the firm as a whole is a little over 50 years old. We focus, there's two sides really. There's the industrial automation space and kind of all the little nuances there. And then there's food and beverage manufacturing. So how we got, I guess, into automation initially, this is before you and I were around, but our current president, Gary Miller, he has been with the firm for over 40 years. He came in basically looking for a job because back then the firm was called Sales Consultants of Oak Brook. And as the name suggested, they would help companies find salespeople. Didn't really matter what they were selling, but that was their thing. And so he came in as a recent college grad, hoping that they would help him find a job. Instead, they offered him one as a recruiter. He never left. Bought the firm from the founder, changed the name, and just so happened to be at his desk one day, and the phone rang, and this person said, "We heard from so-and-so that your company helps find salespeople." And Gary's like, "Yeah, that's right." And they're like, "Well, we don't know if you can help us at all or not, but we've created this thing. It's called the programmable logic controller. We need people to go out and sell it for us." And so that was basically his foray into automation, and obviously we've gone a lot deeper and wider, since. But my focus here really is kind of leading the business development and the recruiting efforts, specifically with what I would call like the factory side of automation. So anything with robotics, assembly, machine vision, AI. That's pretty much what I focus on here throughout North America. How I got here and kind of how I guess got into manufacturing, just kind of the industrial space. It was kind of by chance. I mean, nobody, as a kid says, I want to be a recruiter when I grow up, right? It just doesn't work that way. But my initial, first part of my career professionally was in higher education admissions, whether it was brick and mortar campus or online programs. So I had a good 9 or 10 year run helping people in that respect. And then we started a family. I wanted a little bit more of a kind of a work-life balance. And I stumbled across an opportunity to be an account executive for ThomasNet, the old Thomas Register, the green books, right, that everybody remembers. And so that was really kind of my, I guess, initial exposure to, production facilities and engineering firms and integrators, and kind of going in and seeing how things were made, right? And I just found it fascinating. And, they were going to be going in a different direction as a company. And so I had a young family and I needed to find something. And, I stumbled upon Miller Resource Group, and it was basically the two things that I really liked. It was, helping people, with their career paths, and then still getting a chance to work, with manufacturing and in the industrial space. So it's been kind of the perfect marriage in a sense for me. Like I said, that's been almost 7 years ago since I've been here.
Oh, nice! Congratulations. Whenever you first took that first position, what did that type of position entail when you were working with the colleges?
It was basically on kind of the front end of the house. So I worked for Colorado Tech online. They had some brick and mortar campuses as well, but it basically was helping people, mostly working adults and military at that time, but basically helping people with whether it was their, pursue their associates, their bachelor's, their master's degrees, That was essentially what we would do. And I, kind of rose up the ranks there, over the years and got into some management opportunities. And then, like I said, the company was going through some changes at the time. There was, some layoffs that went down. So that's how I ended up at ThomasNet then. And like I said, that was really eye-opening in a sense. I mean, there was one I remember, because I was a big, grill guy. Like anytime in the summer, always had the grill out, doing something. And one of my clients actually made, when I was at ThomasNet, they made these huge machines, these briquetting machines that would actually make the charcoal briquettes. So like Kingsford, for example, would be one of their customers. And I remember going back and, seeing how these things were made. And I was like, yeah, this is the coolest thing. And like I said, we get essentially the same, type of experience here now, partnering with our clients, going to shows like FabTech and Automate and IMTS and actually, seeing, the technology live and in person and being able to talk about it then, to a candidate and really kind of, just add a whole nother level of value to the conversation as opposed to just, hey, here's a link to their website, here's the job description, let me know what you think. By investing in our time and going to these shows, we can say, man, I was just at Automate, they debuted this machine, it's going to be disruptive to the industry, there's a lot of buzz, so just really being able to bring, that extra content to the conversation. That's, like you said, that's the exciting part for me, or one of them anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a big part of like you said, going to the events. Like that's one of the things that we're focused on is like really having a true understanding ourselves of like what these events are, what they entail, and that way we could potentially either connect our customers or connect, some college student that's like, hey, I'm thinking about getting into packaging. Okay,
Yeah.
well, have you heard of Pack Expo? Like, you should probably check that out. Or, hey, I'm thinking about getting into welding. Have you heard of FabTech?
Exactly. Yeah, they're the awareness piece. I mean, and that's really something too that we got to practice what we preach in terms of the awareness. There's been a couple of instances where we've brought seniors from a local high school, and we would bring them to the show on the last day and introduce them to some of our clients, let them just kind of see and absorb everything, because there's still, as there is still this stigma when it comes to manufacturing that it's the old Henry Ford assembly lines and it's just monotonous and it's the same thing, and it couldn't be farther from the truth.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that collectively, and I know we're all preaching the same thing, but you've got to start as early as possible with the next generation and expose them to all the cool stuff that is in automation, whether it's the design, the selling of it, servicing it, whatever path they want to take. It's such a cool field to get into, and a lot of people, I still think a lot of people maybe aren't as aware as what they should be. So, like I said, if nothing else, hopefully, with like the work that you're doing, and having this podcast and kind of sharing, the stories that we have, even if it just impacts one person, that's a win right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that for students and especially you just said this and it really popped in my mind, like really the teachers of like schools should also be like attending these events so that way they can bring that awareness to the kids there, because like if you have, let's just say for instance a college and it's they're teaching like PLC classes and it's the instructor of the PLC class, if they haven't been to an event in 5 years, they've only been teaching, like what do they really know of the industry, right? Like are they where are they getting their new information? Are they on places like LinkedIn? And that kind of brings me to the next thing of the two value adds and things that I think that people have to do, whether they're student, teacher, somebody in the career, is be on LinkedIn, be observing what's going on LinkedIn, who's talking on LinkedIn and what companies are doing different things, and then events. Go into as many of these industry events. And this goes for any, definitely manufacturing, but any type of career path. There's industry events for any industry you could pretty much think of.
Mhm.
And, especially like let's say first, if somebody was to go around and do like we did this year and get like a flavor taste of every single one of these events, your mind is open. I mean, I've been in this industry 10 years and my mind is opened in a whole nother
Mhm.
way that, just really experiencing, like understanding exactly what fab tech is and understanding all the different things and all the nuances that are going on in each individual like small sector of each industry, like
Absolutely.
fab tech here. What you have like welding, water jetting, metal bending. Like there's so many like small subsectors of industry that are just here alone that you just like, what, metal bending? I didn't even know that was a thing. Like,
Oh,
um,
yeah, no,
those two, those, yeah, go ahead.
you're exactly right. I mean, you gotta be a sponge, right? And it's and I'm realistic, when I talk to both, whether it's a client, or a candidate, somebody that's been in the industry, a lot longer than me, or maybe they come from actually an engineering, background. I
Mhm.
tell them straight away, I'm like, you guys will forget more about this stuff than I can learn in my lifetime. But like I said, by at least us investing in our time and going to these shows as frequently as we have over the years, it does help. You do pick up, like the nuances that you mentioned. You get more comfortable with, the terminology, the technology, how it's being applied. I mean, I'll be honest. Like when I first started here, I literally had to sit down. Okay, this is what a system integrator does versus a high-tech value-add distributor compared to a supplier, versus a custom machine builder, right? I mean, I literally
Yeah,
was, they all do, it seems like on the outside they're all doing the similar things, but it's really not.
way
And
different.
so,
Yeah,
but by immersing yourself or immersing myself, in it, that's how you learn, and it's going to be a constant process. You're always going to be learning because, like you saw just the last couple of days, there's so much new technology out there. And if the minute you stop going to these shows, you're gonna stop learning, and you're gonna people are gonna pass you by in a hurry.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and another big thing is the understanding what direction you want to go, especially if you're young in your career, right? A lot of times you don't know what direction you want to go, or people stumble into the career path that they have. Um, and especially I think for like the happiness and satisfaction of a career,
Mm-hmm.
doing a little bit more flavor tasting and understanding of what's out there is super super important.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I always tell people there's no worse feeling, in my opinion, in the morning when the alarm goes off and you're not looking forward to where you're going that day, work wise. I mean,
Yep.
that's a miserable existence,
Yep.
but I think that's another cool piece of the automation industry is there's so many different directions that
Hmm.
you can go, right? And especially depending on, what company you're with and what they're up to. I mean, there's so much, diversification out there in the industries that they serve and the different types of solutions that they can deliver. It's like literally every day is going to be something different. And then to me, that would be extremely exciting and rewarding at the same time, because you're maybe helping, an automotive centric client one day, and then the next day you're helping somebody maybe in agriculture, and
Yep.
automate that process. I mean, it's just really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. What are some things that you're seeing in the industry? As you have this like, I'll say like this bird's eye view of
Sure.
of kind of the industry and what's going on within the recruiting space.
No, good question. I think we were kind of talking about this, beforehand. Just the accelerated pace that automation is being adopted at now versus pre-COVID, right? So COVID was this black swan event nobody saw coming, and as a result, if somebody out there was hesitant to automate, or they didn't feel they needed to, they really don't have a choice right now. And so what that's doing is it's creating a lot more jobs out there in the industry. And like I had alluded to, earlier, I started seeing a trend right around this time about 2 years ago where, a lot of our current and new clients were coming to us. They needed new salespeople because they had identified, opportunities, in the market to go and automate, whether it was new customers or go deeper and wider with existing customers. So we started filling a bunch of sales positions at all levels, territory, regional, national, it didn't matter. That carried then into 2021. Well, all of those, POs that the sales folks were winning, now those clients coming back saying, crap, we don't have enough engineers on the back end to help design and deliver, on these solutions, on these projects. So then we started filling, more engineering positions. Obviously team sizes, company sizes were growing. That opened up, more management positions, new director level positions. So, if you, fast forward to this fall, pretty much between like 60 and 75% of all the positions that we've either filled or we're working on are newly created. They didn't exist before. So I think from our perspective, I think that's one thing that you're going to continue to see is just a hiring frenzy, new positions being created out of necessity. The other thing that is really been cool to see is the number of robots that are being deployed in non-automotive settings, right? So it's like, and we can probably, I don't have the number in front of me, obviously, but, just seeing all the different types of applications now for robotics just continuing to grow. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Some of the things with AI that's coming into, the industry now, when I first started, AI was kind of a buzzword, and at least it wasn't really talked about much, in the manufacturing side. But now you have companies like, Landing AI, for example, out of Palo Alto that is really starting to come into this space. So you see a lot more with machine learning, computer learning, robots as a service. I mean, who would have thought a few years ago about, companies literally being able to rent out a robot by the hour?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's another recent thing, that we're seeing too. There's some companies out there that are trying to make a go at that and are finding some success. So yeah, there's just, I mean, I think we see that it's just the tip of the iceberg, from an innovation standpoint. It's, every year is going to bring something new and exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned also off camera that a lot of your recruiting positions are new positions that actually didn't even exist in the industry.
Right.
But
Yeah.
can you go ahead and dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So I think, well, like I said, we'll take UR for an example. They had those, they split the business into those segments, whether it was welding, palletizing, or machine tending. And they want essentially subject matter experts, at different levels, within those segments. So, those are highly visible, positions, that didn't exist before. And I think, a lot of the companies that are winning right now, whether they're, multi-billion dollar, entities, or if it's a small or a medium-sized, company, those are the folks right now that are winning. Is that, okay, what's a new direction that we can go into? What are we really good at, and how can we do more of that? How can we bring more value? So it's a really exciting time, for us across the industry, because there are, we're not seeing positions that need to be filled because somebody wasn't doing a good job, and somebody's got to come in and be Mr. Fix-It. I mean, anybody out there, engineers are all busy. The sales folks are extremely busy. They're having record year after record year. And like I said, it's a really exciting time to be associated with the industry because there's just so much going on.
Yeah, absolutely. One second. Can you guys hear the beeping that keeps happening? Y'all hearing that? No? Okay. I'm going to close it anyway because I hear it. It's annoying. Sorry about that. Yeah. And kind of to lean into that, like one of the things that you mentioned with one of the positions you just recently filled, that these positions are kind of navigating towards like a new culture and like the way that our world's shifting, like with, like social media, like some of these positions are becoming about and becoming a real thing because the social media uh, aspects, right? Like the fact that like now there's a whole world of marketing, selling on social media that, at one point in time, like didn't really have, it wasn't there. It didn't exist. Right. So why would you hire executives for that position or hire directors for that position? And things like that is like just changing kind of the ecosystem of the way companies do business.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from a branding standpoint, whether it's, you're promoting your company brand, or your personal brand. I mean, LinkedIn really has been a tremendous tool, and I think will continue to be a tremendous tool for really anybody out there. But specifically, if we're talking just about automation, I love what you guys do. And I know there's other, friends of ours that we have in the industry that will go to the show, will highlight a company, will interview, folks at the booth, and really kind of help tell that story and get it out to the masses. And what tremendous awareness, that's going to bring, because again, we were talking about somebody maybe who's, interested in getting into automation, but they're not quite sure. They might, very well see that, video or see that promo that somebody puts out on social media and be like, wow, that looks like a cool company. Those people, obviously, everybody's smiling at that booth. They're invested. They want to be there. That's the type of company that I want to work for. Right. And that's the companies that are winning, the war on talent right now, because it is going to continue to be a very competitive market. It's very candidate driven. Candidates, the A+ candidates that we're working with, they have options, not just the stuff that we bring to them, but they're probably sourcing maybe something out on their own, leveraging their network. They have maybe another recruiter that brought them something else. So the companies that really can tell their story effectively, and like I said, get people from interested to excited. Those are the folks that are winning right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like literally right before we jumped on this podcast, we had to leave. Will Hilly, he was over here running around grabbing UR content.
Yeah.
And Jake was over there with him as well. And it's for them and for us as well. Like our purpose of making this content is like to bring this show to like people that can't make it to the show.
Exactly.
So that way they can experience, at least get some taste of it. You won't be able to get the full vibe of the show unless you come and experience it yourself.
Right.
But definitely you could at least get some flavor of it and kind of have an understanding of the, the type of systems that are here, the type of equipment that are here. A couple cool things that were outside of the welding space or outside of the, automation space. Lincoln, I believe it was, or the Welding Association. They had virtual welding.
Wow.
Fronius had physical welding. So they're just have lines. People just come on, try our welders out, get to, sit up there and weld as long as you want, as long as there's no line. They're just letting people sit there and weld all day.
That's awesome.
Jenna had the opportunity to weld for the first time. So, people just like, if they're thinking about welding, I commented at my brother because he's getting close to graduating high school and he's thinking about being in welding. And I told him, I said, man, you missed out, man. This is the event you should have been at, Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, it's like we talked about before. I remember, I think it was last year we were talking about Automate Forward when we did that virtual event, and I was on a panel. My buddy Ted Rogier at Festo Didactic, I remember, was moderating the panel, and here's little old me right alongside with some company presidents and industry executives. And I remember towards the end, and the whole panel was about basically the kind of the next generation of workers in the space, and how do we kind of combat the skills gap, right? We all heard that term, skills gap, and yes, it exists, but and I was just throwing my 2 cents out at the end. I said I think there's just as much of an awareness gap as well, and it's like, what can we do, as an industry to address that? I mean, First Robotics and programs like that are great. STEM focused or STEAM focused, programs at the elementary level even. I think need to be. We could do so much more with educating and making people aware of this industry. And like I said, I applaud you guys for doing stuff like this, because it all is going to add up. The stuff that Jake does, Chris, Will, you guys, it is going to make a difference for sure. Yep. So kudos to you guys.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's definitely going to have some, definitely have at least at bare minimum, right, some impact. Ideally, like it's a massive impact.
Right.
And I truly believe, I think awareness, because awareness is the issue, right? I think there's other issues, but I think it's like the number one issue. Yep. I and so many other people in the industry come into this industry and had no clue they were going to get into this industry, right? If most of the people in the industry are just stumbling into the industry, that means they weren't even aware of it. They you know what I mean? It was just, luck of the draw, it was fate, that brought them to where they're at.
Exactly. And I think too, another piece that I would say, you were asking earlier about, kind of what our clients are looking for and what's important to them now. One thing that I would say is if you're a young person and you're, looking at getting into whether it's an apprenticeship program or a 2-year or 4-year degree, whatever the case may be, obviously steer towards automation. But if you're going to have a kind of an engineering focus, double E's are always going to be in need. Mechanical engineers are always going to be in need. But the one thing that our clients really want us to try to find as many as we can are those folks with a mechatronic specialty. Yep. So if that would be one piece of advice too, to give a young person, is if you can find a mechatronics program and kind of get the best of both worlds, that's gonna open up even more doors for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That's like the thing that kind of sucks with that is, like, I don't personally know of a lot of colleges that are doing that at an engineering degree level. No. A lot of them are the 2-year degree, which is good for a lot of people too, right? If you just want the 2-year degree, then great. Yeah. Even when I went to school, technically there wasn't a mechatronics program. There was one of my degrees was advanced automation and robotics, which was definitely very applicable and definitely right there around that. But then one of the other things that I had to do was I had to take electrical and mechanical to kind of get that mechatronics type of, or at least both sides of things, to have the full mechatronics background and skill set.
Right. Yeah, and it's obviously it's paying off, dividends for you. But yeah, that the mechatronics piece, we hear that pretty frequently. And even if somebody, personality wise, even if they don't want to be in a customer facing, situation, they maybe want to do more, kind of, service or, kind of post sales work. I mean, if you can program a robot and, you have the different languages down and that's, that's kind of your thing. I mean, you're never going to be short of options. Nothing's really recession proof anymore, but I mean, if you can program a robot, and that's your career path, just like you're, at Fab Tech with welding, if you want to go into, welding, I mean, there is some security there,
Yeah, 101%, definitely. Yeah. What, going into more of the, what people are looking for, both on, one half of that is the employer side of things, and the other half is the employee side of things. Right. What are you seeing, some of the things that employers or job titles that individuals are looking for?
I mean, titles are going to mean different things at different companies, right?
Yeah.
I think from the employee side, um, I think during the early part of COVID, right, a lot of people, we're all locked down and weren't really sure what was going to happen. And even as you got farther into that year, talking with a lot of people, when they had a lot of free time, they really kind of took a step back and looked in the mirror, and they're like, what's really important to me? Like, what do I really want to do, professionally, so that I can feel, I can feel better, right?
Yeah.
And excuse me. And one of the things that we've seen then, and I don't see this changing, is how is the work that I'm doing making an impact? How is it inspiring change? What is the value add, right? And so people want to feel good about the work they're doing, knowing that they're making a difference. And I think that especially with automation, for every robot that's deployed, it's creating 2-3 jobs after the fact, something along those lines. So people want to feel good about that. From the employer side, I think they're looking they're looking for people who believe in the vision and the message that the company is after. They're looking for people to.
This episode of the Manufacturing Come Up is sponsored by Elite Automation.
Elite Automation is focusing on AMR technologies. AMRs are autonomous mobile robots used in your facility to transfer goods or products from one side of your facility to the other.
This is a super powerful tool, and it's a new piece of technology that us as systems integrators can utilize as a tool to leverage your company to be more advanced than the next company and be able to automate systems that at one point were not able to be automated.
If you have any AMR needs, you can reach us at rfq@eliteautomationusa.com.
To not just be there for a paycheck and watching the clock. They really want people that are truly bought in, that are leaning in, that get it, right? You look at a company like Gray Solutions, for example, in Lexington, and they're solutioneers, right? That they refer to their people as solutioneers. That's a great word, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, the company is continuing to grow. Their people are happy. They're making a tremendous impact, in just the local Lexington community, but also, nationwide. Those are the companies right now that are attractive, to people because they get it, Yep.
Yeah, I think that both on the employee and employer side, you'll see a big shift, and I think it's going to be part of it's going to be demand of what the employee is looking for, and the other part of it's going to be the employer that implements this is going to see the long-term success, and
Exactly.
that is the shift of people caring more about what they do in their career. That that if people don't want to do the dirty job, right? Like, okay, well then the employers need to put robots in place to not only just get that job done, but then also to give a more exciting position for somebody to want to come in and do, like robot programming,
Exactly.
or some other type of mechanical engineering associated with it. But then I see something that's like much bigger, like an ecosystem thing. Like that's like one small example of it. Like the ecosystem being, I think companies are almost going to have to go to I'll just use Google as an example, where they have like kind of like a campus style setup where they have like foosball tables and courtyards to eat and just have like a really I can't think of what the word for it, but ecosystem that people really like being around, and maybe when they get off work, instead of shooting straight home, they're actually going to the commons area and playing basketball or whatever the thing may be. Maybe it's video games or whatever, right? But I think there's going to be a shift in that, to where, especially with there's the digitalization that's kind of, I think, going to push things. So like social medias and things like that. And it's going to push us to do new things and do things differently. And then there's also going to be the fact, just because we're so segregated with social media, that we're actually going to be hungry to come together. And so like companies that can really do a good job at making people come together and have like a deeper relationship at work, and not just hey, this is my work buddy, but they actually, you know, maybe spend a little bit of time outside of work together. I think you'll start to see a lot of those culture changes.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'll give you an example of something that, you know, I saw firsthand. So, I mean, obviously we're, you know, most of us work remote, you know, here. Obviously we have a, you know, a designated office space, but, you know, most of our clients, their headquarters are everywhere else, you know, around the world. And we very rarely get to go visit them there. But I had an opportunity, it was right before Labor Day, I think. So just a couple months ago. And, excuse me, I'm still getting over the sinus infection, so it's trying to kick this cough. But no, we had an opportunity to actually go and visit with a client, you know, local here to Chicagoland, and they had recently moved to a new facility. This was their building. They weren't leasing it. You know, they bought it. It's theirs. And so they're giving us the tour. And the first thing that stood out is everybody else that we met or that we saw along the way, you could tell they wanted to be there. They enjoyed being with each other. Because you and I have both been in places where, you know, you walk in and it's just like heavy, hanging in the air, like people just cannot stand being there right now, right? Yeah. So this particular company was the opposite of that. People really wanted to be there. But, you know, one of the things that really stood out to me is they had basically a playroom set up in their building for people if daycare fell through or something, you know, I got to pick up my kid, but I don't really have anywhere to take him for a couple hours till my spouse gets off or whatever. They had built a playroom with, you know, a chalkboard and toys and all this little tables for, you know, and I was like, man, what a cool idea. What a cool idea. So I took a video. I asked him if it was okay. I did like a quick little pan on my phone and I sent it to Gary here. I was like, hey boss, maybe we should do something like this here, you know? But yeah, to your point, creating spaces like that, I think is going to go a long way. Because not everybody can be remote. You know, I get it, you get it. But for those that are going to be, you know, on site, if you can have a space like that, that's going to sell itself, you know?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the exact culture changes that I'm talking about is having like ecosystems like daycares and stuff like that. And also like, where can we find it? I know there's a place where we can get a video of you guys' setup, because I know you guys did a really good job on getting your guys' studio together. And I'd like to play some B-roll in this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we have, so like outside, and Chris Lukey commented on when he was here for ribbon cutting, but like right outside the door here, we had this mural that we painted, you know, kind of highlighting, you know, our and kind of the company culture and our vision. And there was like a time-lapse video of that getting created. And I think there's probably, you know, some other videos that we've done too about, you know, this space. Cause like I said, you know, we're not here every day, you know, anymore. But you know, when we do come in, I mean, you know, there's beer in the fridge. The couches are comfy, you know, I mean, it's just like being at home in a sense, right? So,
yeah, you definitely want that vibe. Yeah, we'll find something somewhere. You just send us some links and we'll get them posted up.
Yeah, definitely will.
Yeah, because I mean, like we really haven't done that a lot with our office space, but it's the same thing. Like, you know, one, we're you know, a very young company still, and we're just reinvesting back in growth. But that type of ecosystem is just like 101%. Like one thing that I see us doing as a company, and I see like just every company almost having to do it, or else people are just not going to want to work there. I mean, it don't matter if you're a a GM plant and you have welding robots all on the floor, and it's going to have to be some level of that dirty, right? It's
Mhm.
robotic robotic welding, or a fabrication shop. It might be like that, but that doesn't mean like your office area, your lobby area, some type of commons area where people can just go and, that it can't be set up to be nice and have that culture and ecosystem that people really enjoy.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when I first started here, we had kind of, the old office, we had kind of the traditional, cube set up, and it was, kind of an open, kind of a bullpen, type of setup. And, with this new space now, it's the complete opposite of that. I mean, we have a designated, video production studio, podcast studio here. There's, like I said, little, basically like workstations. It's not even like a cube. It's like, just so workstations. You come, you get your laptop, plug in, do your work. We have some individual offices. There's a big conference room as well. But like I said, it's all, you can basically sit down and work, wherever you want, and be comfortable. And like I said, I agree with you. I think companies that are kind of forward thinking, like that, and then, it's one thing to have that too, but then you also have to be able to properly, promote it and highlight and showcase it, because if you don't, nobody's ever going to realize, what's going on behind those doors. So that's, you got to be able to, we're talking about, social media before. That's part of your company brand.
Yeah.
Your space, your lobby. If your employees, if somebody's there for an interview, and everybody's saying hello to them or good morning, or introducing themselves along the way. I mean, that's all part of the process, right? For you to try to attract and retain talent. That people got to get that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if this is a thing, but a position that drives culture. In my mind, it should be the CEO. I don't know if some companies have like a culture position, like executive of culture or something like that. But definitely, like especially like a business of our size, like CEO, I think is like their number one job should be like driving culture and what the employees think about the company, what the outside people think of the company. I guess that's kind of PR, but also on a deeper fundamental cultural level, like just understanding, like, what do I envision the culture being? Like, what do I want people to think of this company when they come here? And then doing the things to put that in place, right? Because you could do all the PR, you could do all the social media posting and all that, but if you don't first like actually have that culture in your own mind, like that, to be honest with you, like one thing that we lost in the beginning was our culture, because I started this company with a vision, and I'm a very visionary type of individual, and I wanted us to be one of the best. Like we execute so quickly and right? And then I noticed like after like that first year kind of like beat me up, like just starting through COVID and it kind of hit me like after like towards like the middle of that second year, that I was like, holy cow, I kind of lost sight of culture, and then I had to take it back to the thing. I basically called a team meeting with our team, and I was like, look guys, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I fell off. I've been completely focused on just like the survival and success of the company. Like you guys are going to see a new CEO like starting from today forward, and I just I had that click in my own mind that was like, it's my job as a CEO to mold what our culture looks like, and to make sure that our employees are also molding what that culture looks like, and run into issues with like negative cultures or cultures that just don't match. You don't even have to be a negative culture. It could be a positive culture that's just not in line with what you envision the culture being of the company.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you too. I think it starts from the top down, but then, leadership teams that are comfortable, enabling their employees at the same time, to kind of, in a sense, maybe like self-police, a lot of stuff, and giving them, giving them, just as much ownership, right? Because, everybody's got to be rowing in the same direction, and if you're not, then, obviously you're going to be going in circles. But I think that another thing right now too, that would define what we would call like a destination employer is not just having a good culture like that where their employees feel enabled, but giving their employees the chance to speak up or have a voice, and share ideas, and having situations where no idea is going to be laughed at or shot down, or that's ridiculous, we're never going to do that, but everybody's voice is heard. Those are companies that are again going to continue to attract and retain talent. And I think it's easier said than done if it's a larger company and there's a lot of levels to it, but I don't think it's impossible. And I think every manager, regardless if you're in a huge company or if you're in a small company with 50 people or less, but if you're in a management position, regardless of the size of your team, you can still take those same principles and apply it, just to your own little group,
Yeah, absolutely. I on and off do this. I want to do this daily, but it doesn't end up happening. Where we have like our entire elite team chat, and like I try to put in there like something about us that's like a cultural like one-liner, or maybe sometimes I write like a good paragraph, right? Mm-hmm. And kind of just defining of like who I see us being, or like things around culture, right? Like that whole message is culture related. So that way it's like touching the management, it's touching the, individual employees that maybe like I don't get the time to speak with on a daily basis, especially when I'm running around doing events and stuff. Like, and team, you got to stay on top of me on doing that, right? You got to keep our culture going strong.
Right. I know we, like I said, it's one of the many things I love about Gary here is even though we've all gone remote. Like I said, I have some colleagues that are out of state now. He's still on a weekly basis. We have a couple of different Teams calls as a group. To start the week, to end the week, we kind of do, midweek huddles when we kind of break down projects, but, and that's great. But in addition to that, he still makes a point to call every week and just check in, just to see how you do, just to see how you're doing. Not just about work stuff, but, hey, how are the kids? How was Gabriel's football game? I saw you, talking about that, and that to me, that's important. It goes a long way, and, like I said, you alluding to the same thing. I mean, even if you don't think it makes as big an impact, you might not realize, from the employee side, it really does. It makes them feel truly, like they're a part of something, right? And that you do care because you go, above and beyond. So that makes a huge difference for any company, really.
Absolutely. As we kind of wrap up here, what are some valuable points that you can add for somebody looking to get into this industry, or maybe they're looking for a position, maybe a higher level position, kind of talk to that type of audience?
Sure. I would say if somebody's looking at getting into automation, you definitely you can't just be 50% invested. I mean, you got to be 100% invested. You have to try as best as you can with different sources that are out there. Not just LinkedIn, but whether it's different magazines or publications. But you got to consistently educate yourself along the way to keep up with the latest trends. I think that, your net work is your net worth, right? So if you can surround yourself with as many like-minded people as possible, that's going to be worth its weight, in gold. And that's one thing too that I can't speak for other industries, right? But I've made, whether it's on the candidate or the client side, I've made so many friends in this industry, right? And we have all these different threads going, in conversations on LinkedIn. It's like it really is an industry. People. There's just so many good people that are in this industry. So definitely, pay attention to your network and who you're engaging with, who you're following, what they're saying, and don't hesitate to, reach out to somebody. You're like, hey, I've followed you for a couple of years, or I followed your company. I really admire, what you guys do, how you do it, how you present yourselves. I'd love to chat offline, maybe have a cup of coffee sometime just to kind of, pick your brain on stuff. Like, don't be afraid to kind of put yourself out there.
This episode of the Manufacturing Come Up is sponsored by Elite Automation.
Elite Automation is a systems integrator specializing in robotic weld cell applications, and especially the design and manufacturing of the weld fixture.
If you have any robotic weld cell needs, you can reach us at rfq@eliteautomationusa.com.
Within this industry, because there's a lot of knowledge in this industry that people want to share, right? So that's another thing, that I would mention too, is if you're a younger person, and you're looking at breaking into automation, identify, some companies, that appeal to you for different reasons. And like I said, follow them, reach out to some folks, introduce yourself, maybe find a good recruiter, right, to help tell your story. That wouldn't be a bad idea either. But yeah, definitely got to be proactive for sure. It's not going to happen unless you put yourself out there.
Yeah. This is one that I'm probably going to say like 1,000 times. It'll probably be on every podcast, but I wish I would have spent much more of my career network building, especially going into being a business owner. Like, I went from being, like I tell people, the engineer in the basement to operating a company, and the few people that I did know in the industry were like mainly customers, maybe some vendors. But whenever I left from a systems integrator, so one of the contingencies for me leaving with our NDA and whatnot was basically to leave all those clients behind. Right. And I didn't even want to get into a situation where I'm even asking them for referrals for other companies, or what I mean. I just wanted to, okay, I'm leaving you guys. We're gonna we're gonna cut it off here. I'm not gonna do anything to try to pursue your customers. And so with that being said, I was left with minimally to no contacts in the industry after I was with them for 8 years. And I was like literally the engineer in the basement, doing project management and stuff like that as well. But and then to go to start a business with no network. And then when I started the business, I thought I'm going to do events, right? And then COVID happened, and then there wasn't events. And so I was like, well, now what? They were my one and only go-to for trying to start knowing people and knowing what's going on in the industry. But yeah, so like you said, like just gaining a network and really building some individuals who are friends. And by far this year right here, probably gained more friends than I have my entire lifetime from just networking with individuals, trying to add value, and like I said, putting yourself out there.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's all about relationships, right? I mean, people are people. That's another thing too. I think maybe on a kind of the social side coming out of COVID, I think it really kind of forced people to identify, who are the positive, influencers in my life that I want to be around more, I should be spending more time with. And then who were kind of the misery loved company people that are just trying to drag me down, and I need to kind of, get away from those folks. I think that was kind of there's a lot of people that I've talked to the last couple of years that have found success. They had that come to Jesus moment. They're like, wow, this guy is not helping me at all. And, they essentially, kind of cut ties, and then gravitate more towards, the positive people, in their lives. Like I said, you're a product of your environment, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm a believer in that. I know there's anomalies, with that, but I do believe you're a product of your environment. So yeah, with your network, surround yourself with, as many like-minded people as possible. You're not going to regret it,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Michael, where can people find you at?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously, LinkedIn, I spend pretty much every single day on LinkedIn. So definitely connect with me there. Follow Miller Resource Group. Like I said, we support food and beverage manufacturing, and then all things automation, not just with, robotics. I have colleagues that get into more building automation, HVAC, energy management, warehouse automation, food, processing equipment manufacturers. I mean, any little niche within automation that you can think of, that's the sandbox that we play in, and those are the types of folks that we support. But yeah, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out. I'm always open to chat. Even if you're not necessarily, if you're a company and, you're looking at, how do we attract and retain top talent? That's a struggle. We have a lot of resources here from a consulting standpoint that we can provide. If you're a candidate, and whether you're actively looking at making a change or you're just passive, don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, I'm always here to give some advice, maybe, bounce some ideas back and forth. So that's the one thing is, like I said, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help in any way possible.
Awesome. Thank you. You guys have a podcast too, don't you?
Yeah, Travis has, I think it's called the Get Hired podcast. So Travis Miller, our VP, has a podcast, and we kind of fell off a little bit, when we were kind of moving between offices. But yeah, I actually, one of our other VPs, Gus Bajanis, on the food and beverage side, he just put out a spot not too long ago. I filmed one not too long ago that hasn't dropped yet, but there's a couple of us that are going to be a little more consistent with the podcast. So, maybe the next time we can flip it, and I'll come on and I'll ask you some questions, and then we can kind of pay it forward. How's that sound?
Sure, let's do it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and also too, if you could provide any like links or whatever to that podcast, we'll share those out, because definitely one of the whole purposes of this podcast is to get people in careers and
absolutely
educate them on how to do so.
We'll take care of it. Like I said, I can't thank you enough for reaching out and having me on. I was really looking forward to it. I told my kids today when they were going to school, they're like, Daddy, you're all dressed up. I'm like, it's a big day, guy. I got a collared shirt on. I took a shower. This is a big day for Dad, talking with Malachi.
Thank you. I'm honored to have you as well.
No worries, man. Look forward to meeting meeting in person, having a couple of cold ones together. Okay.
Absolutely. Let's make it happen.
Awesome. All right, man.
All right. Thank you.